Think the richest people in history got lucky? King Solomon accumulated wealth equal to over $2 trillion in today's money. And here's what nobody tells you. The same strategies he used 3,000 years ago are the exact playbook the ultra-wealthy are using right now while you're stuck trading time for money. You've been lied to about how wealth actually works. They told you to get good grades, get a safe job, save 10% of your income. Meanwhile, billionaires are following principles so old they were written before paper money even existed. I've spent 5 years reverse engineering how the top 1% builds generational wealth, and when I compared their strategies to King Solomon's ancient writings, the overlap was terrifying. In this video, I'm breaking down the 4 wealth secrets King Solomon used that made him richer than Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Warren Buffett combined. And I'm showing you exactly how modern billionaires disguise these same tactics with fancy business terms while keeping you focused on hustle culture nonsense that keeps you broke. By the end of this, you'll understand why your current money strategy is designed to fail. Let's start with something that'll make you rethink everything you know about building wealth. King Solomon said the borrower becomes slave to the lender. Sounds obvious, right? Wrong. You've completely misunderstood what this means. Most people think this is about avoiding credit card debt. That's surface level. Here's what Solomon actually understood. Debt is a tool. The wealthy use it. The poor are used by it. And the difference comes down to one thing: who controls the cash flow. When you take out a mortgage on a house you live in, you're the slave. You work 40 years to pay off an asset that produces zero income. But when a billionaire takes out a loan to buy an apartment building, the tenants pay the debt while the billionaire controls an appreciating asset. Same debt, completely different outcome. Ray Dalio didn't build Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, by avoiding debt. He used strategic leverage to multiply his buying power. The Walton family didn't build Walmart's $250 billion empire with cash savings. They leveraged debt to expand faster than competitors. Even King Solomon used this principle, financing trade expeditions with borrowed resources that returned 10 times the investment. Here's what will blow your mind. The average millionaire has borrowed more money than you'll earn in your entire lifetime. They just borrowed it for assets that pay them, not liabilities that cost them. That's the distinction Solomon understood that you don't. Your entire life, you've been taught that being debt-free equals being wealthy. That's exactly what keeps you working until you're 70. The wealthy know debt is just leverage, and leverage is how you move massive weight with minimal effort. Solomon leveraged relationships with other kingdoms to multiply his trading power. You're leveraging your credit score to buy a car that loses value the second you drive it off the lot. But here's where this gets dangerous, and it's why most people who try this principle end up bankrupt instead of rich. The second secret separates people who build dynasties from people who just talk about building dynasties. King Solomon wrote that precious treasure remains in the house of the wise, not cash, not income, treasure. And there's a specific reason he used that word. You think wealth is about how much money you make. That's why you're still broke. Wealth is about what you keep, and more importantly, what you keep that grows in value while you sleep. Solomon understood the difference between treasure and currency, and it's the same distinction that separates billionaires from high earners burning out in their 40s. Here's what actually happened. King Solomon accumulated gold, silver, rare woods, spices, and strategic resources, things that held value across generations, things that couldn't be inflated away by bad government policy, things that other people desperately needed. He wasn't stacking paper, he was stacking leverage. Fast forward to today. Elon Musk doesn't keep his wealth in bank accounts. He keeps it in Tesla stock, SpaceX equity, and Bitcoin, assets that appreciate faster than inflation can destroy them. Warren Buffett doesn't hoard cash. He hoards ownership in companies that generate cash while he sleeps. Jeff Bezos didn't get rich from his Amazon salary. He got rich from owning pieces of the infrastructure everyone else depends on. Here's what nobody tells you. The dollar in your savings account loses 10% of its purchasing power every 3 years due to inflation. Meanwhile, the wealthy store their treasure in assets that gain value, while regular people focus on saving worthless paper. Solomon knew this. Your financial advisor doesn't want you to know this. Every dollar you leave sitting in a checking account is a dollar you're volunteering to make worth less. Every month you wait to buy assets is a month you're choosing to stay poor. The wise store treasure, the foolish store currency, and the gap between those two groups gets wider every single day. Now, if you think that's the key to everything, what's coming next is going to completely reframe how you see business itself. The third secret is why some people build billion-dollar companies while you can't even get your side hustle past 5 figures. King Solomon said, "In all labor there is profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." And modern entrepreneurs have weaponized this principle in ways that would make Solomon proud. You talk about starting a business. You talk about your goals. You talk about your vision board. Meanwhile, someone with half your intelligence and a quarter of your excuses is executing and lapping you. Solomon understood that profit doesn't come from planning. It comes from output, real, tangible, market-tested output. Here's the framework the wealthy actually use. They build, they test, they iterate, fast. No perfect business plan, no waiting for ideal conditions. They put products in front of customers and let the market tell them what works. Jeff Bezos didn't perfect online retail before launching Amazon. He sold books from his garage and improved while revenue was coming in. Sarah Blakely didn't wait for investors to validate Spanx. She cut the feet off her pantyhose, tested the concept, and built a billion-dollar company with $5,000. Mark Cuban didn't theorize about streaming technology. He built broadcast.com during the early internet, sold it for billions, and moved on to the next execution. Here's what shocks people. The average successful entrepreneur fails at 7 businesses before hitting the one that changes their life. They profit from labor, not from talking about labor. Meanwhile, you're still in the research phase of an idea you had 3 years ago. Solomon's principle was simple. Every hour spent working produces some form of profit, even if it's just learning what doesn't work. Every hour spent talking produces exactly 0. The market doesn't reward your intentions, it rewards your output. And right now, you're producing nothing but excuses. This is why the wealthy seem to move faster than you. They're not smarter, they're not luckier, they just have a bias toward action, while you have a bias toward preparation. They know that a mediocre plan executed today beats a perfect plan executed never. Solomon built his wealth through trade expeditions, construction projects, and agricultural output, not through vision boards and motivational quotes. So if you're serious about this, subscribe to the channel right now, because what I'm about to reveal next is the secret that ties all of this together, and it's the one principle the ultra-wealthy will never publicly admit they're using. And drop a comment telling me which of Solomon's secrets hit you the hardest. I read every single one. The 4th secret is the most ruthless, and it explains why generational wealth stays concentrated in the same families for centuries. King Solomon said, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, not his children's children." And that subtle distinction changes everything about how you should be building wealth right now. You're thinking 1 generation ahead, maybe. The wealthy are thinking 3 generations ahead, minimum. And that time horizon completely changes what you're willing to sacrifice today. It changes what assets you buy. It changes what businesses you build. It changes what you're willing to walk away from. The Rothschild family has maintained wealth for over 200 years using this exact principle. They don't optimize for the current generation's lifestyle. They optimize for the family's perpetual control of assets. The Rockefeller family still controls billions 6 generations later because John D. Rockefeller built trusts and structures designed to compound across centuries, not across his personal lifetime. Here's what Solomon actually understood. If you build for your own comfort, your wealth dies with you. If you build for your grandchildren's grandchildren, you create unstoppable compounding. The math is simple. $1 million growing at 8% for your lifetime gives you a comfortable retirement. That same $1 million growing at 8% for 3 generations creates a dynasty worth hundreds of millions. Here's the reality. Wealthy families teach their children that they're not building businesses to sell for profit. They're building institutions to pass down. You're trying to cash out and buy a boat. They're trying to create infrastructure that makes money in the year 2150. This is why billionaires create family offices, trusts and foundations, not for tax benefits, for immortality. They're literally architecting wealth structures that outlive them by centuries. Solomon did this through establishing trade routes and building the temple, both of which generated value long after his death. You're doing this by buying a rental property you'll probably sell in 10 years. Every decision you make about money should pass this test. Does this make my grandchildren's lives better? If the answer is no, you're not building wealth. You're just consuming with extra steps. The wealthy delay gratification across generations. You can't delay gratification across weeks. Here's what nobody tells you about these 4 secrets. They work together. Leverage assets. Store value in things that appreciate. Execute relentlessly. Build for multiple generations. That's the formula. That's what Solomon did with ancient kingdoms. That's what Bezos does with modern technology. And that's what you're not doing because you're still focused on your next paycheck instead of your family's next century. The gap between you and the wealthy isn't talent, it's not luck, it's not even opportunity, it's time horizon. They're playing a game that lasts 300 years. You're playing a game that lasts until Friday. And that's exactly why they win, and you don't. Remember this, King Solomon's wealth wasn't built in a quarter, it was built across a reign. The wealthiest people alive today aren't optimizing for this year's returns. They're optimizing for their name being attached to wealth in 2020. If you can't think that far ahead, you'll never build anything that lasts beyond your own lifetime. Subscribe if this changed how you see wealth. And go watch the video on screen right now, where I break down exactly how the top 1% is using these principles to dominate entire industries while everyone else fights for scraps.